lovelies. It has been a bit. If you're new to this channel, my name is Sam. This is Shadow Harvest. Basically just like a spiritual witchy journal question thing. One of the things I wanted to do is, I normally do this on Samhain, but this year, or I should say 2021 Samhain, turned into a different type of ritual for me than it normally is, which was kind of fun to experiment and play a little bit on that front. So I decided to not do my year ahead spread of tarot that I normally do, and I decided to push it instead to a new year that happens on January 1st instead. There are times when I really want to reach for tarot. There's other times when I don't, for any sort of energetic pattern guidance. As always, I like to remind everyone that how I use tarot, especially with future casting, I guess, or like looking forward to different energy plays, I believe that energy can be read and we can kind of tell what energetic path we are currently headed down, but there's always room to change. There's always room to manipulate. Fate isn't so concrete as others, I think, perchance believe. At least that's not my standpoint when reading tarot. So here is my current spread for the new year. And normally it goes from card over, reading it like a clockwise. So January is the first one over, all the way to the top card is December. Center card is the theme, and any card you see that's bisecting the other cards, those are the cards I pulled for some sort of clarification. So I'm kind of just gonna go through all of these lovelies and see what my kind of opinions are on them. And I think I want to do a quarterly review of these and see how I feel, as opposed to before I was kind of doing a monthly check-in. Was it accurate? Was it not? Did I feel it was a pull from it? And that was interesting, but I feel like there wasn't enough time, especially when there are sometimes the after effects, I feel like, or when things get clarified. Onward to the actual things. Okay, so first things first, Nine of Pentacles for the month of January. And I feel like that's pretty accurate. You know, it's not like a completion of wealth, but there is definitely a stabilization and a level of me reevaluating where I want to put my money. Mental health is definitely a thing I'm hyper focusing on, in the fact of giving myself time for a lot of things, and one of those are being therapy and the pursuit of finding a therapist that is affordable, which is a whole journey within itself. So we're working on that. And it's interesting how over the last couple of months my brain has kind of recalibrated the idea of what financial goals, tasks, needs are not luxuries if I make them more my main priority, and if I just really shift, I guess, my thinking in 100% of what's necessary, which means in some respects making other sorts of sacrifices, but it doesn't feel as much of a sacrifice. It feels me coming from a place of abundance with my finances, which is kind of nice. So there's definitely like a reevaluating that, even if it's not necessarily like a raise or a monetary value in that sense. The next one is the Six of Swords reversed, which I have a weird thing with reversals. I don't feel like it's necessarily sometimes the opposite of a card, right? Sometimes it's the eternal. It's an interesting look when you do the reversal of a card. Sometimes I like to use them, sometimes I don't. In this spread I did use them. And the idea of it being like an internal journey, especially since I'm kind of focusing on mental health for this month, is very interesting. And so I kind of want to play with that a bit, right? Like, I want to see if that flows over into February of the finding of the therapist, the peeling back certain things. How does that work? And then we have in the month of March, March, the Star. So I think of renewed hope. This is the major arcana that kind of comes out of the Tower. Still very mystically though. I feel like there's probably going to be a lot of emotion. It feels like there could be some other turmoils and stuff going on here. It feels like a sense of more of like March will be a calm-ish sense, as opposed to I got through a thick of something. You know what I mean? So I'm interested there. This is when we start getting into the cards that really worry me, in a sense. So we have the Five of Swords reversed, and I have a clarification on it with the Knight of Cups. This is the Five of Swords I always see very much as like a bit of like a no battles won, I think of like very much of like Loki and the myths, an idea of like problems caused and you having to solve your own problems and not necessarily feeling like you made, maybe, yeah, you put yourself in a stressful situation, you got yourself out of this stressful situation so that now there is less stress, but it's kind of just like bringing you back to neutral. Like there is really no wins barred when it's reversed in that way. And the fact that it kind of comes with like a cups card and emotions makes me nervous a bit. So we'll see how that ends up working out. Again, as always, energies change, paths change, so we'll see if that is the focus there. Then the next card we have for the lovely month, which is May, is the death card, which, yay! Death isn't always, it's like, of course, the endings, what is ending, what needs to die, 'tis the questions, right? So of course I pull a clarification. What exactly are you asking to die here? What is the clarification? And I got the Hierophant reversed as my clarification card. Very interesting. So is it my judgment of hierarchical structures of old setups that need to die? Is it my perspective of that, or is it very much these toxic, twisted versions of structures? I think in a lot of ways there are quite a few structures I hold to and cling to that have, from my current perspective, helped me out. But will that hold up come May time? We'll see, we'll see. Death card again, not very big a deal in the sense of my anxieties. There's another card up here that worries me a lot more as it's coming. And so then June, we have Justice reversed. This is one that worries me more. June is my birth month. Yes, I am a Gemini. And the idea of justice not sought, feeling things unjustified, justice being missed, especially after a death of a structure, that is very interesting. It feels very much of that system and that lead up could be very much of me calling out something or discovering something and then going to seek that it be rectified. And next after that, for the month of July, is the Seven of Pentacles reversed. Hard work normally is what comes with that, right? The idea of like hard work, fruits of labor, still having to go forward, still pushing. But again, reverse of all that, again with this pattern, this lead up, I'm very interested in this lead up that happens between the months of May through July. One, because normally those are my more calmer months. It feels a little bit of, a major transition seems to always end up happening to me for some reason in the month of May. Like a breakup happens, new jobs are found, a raise I get, you know, something, I move, things like that. A lot of transition or big shock off points seem to happen around the month of May. And then things calm down, at least through the summer usually. Like, then normally it's like, okay, cool, I'm processing this new change that's happening. Whereas it seems very much the opposite. It seems like something is going to kick off within the month of May, but it's going to continue to change and be a problem and not necessarily settle down. And there's going to be consequences throughout, all the way even, I would say, to, because then we have the Two of Wands coming into August, which is very interesting. Journeys, new plans, inspirations, what does this mean? But then is immediately followed within the month of September with the Ace of Wands reversed. So, okay, more step. This seems like this year is going to have for me a lot of back and forth, and I think possibly with the pursuit of therapy and unlearning old patterns, that could do a lot, right? I also think that kind of seems to be what so many people are feeling in 2022, right? It's the year, it feels like we've all done this before. Weren't we just here? Is it just a repeat of the last 2 years and the tomfoolery that has been happening? And then anyway, we go on to the month of October, which is, now we have the Six of Pentacles, it looks like. I'm looking at this off my phone, my picture I took of my spread. Yes, the Six of Pentacles, again reversed, which is interesting. I don't know if that's gonna come from a place of I'm being greedy, other people are being greedy and not assisting me. So feeling a little unmoored per se with financial decisions possibly, or does it have to do with the finances or the benefits or the greed or the charity that is allowed from the earlier Wands selection from the year? Entirely possible. But then we have the big nervousness that actually makes me nervous, which is the November. We have, not reversed, we have the Three of Swords. Betrayal, that's fun. I've had this card pulled before. Although last time I feel like I avoided the energy, so I was like, all right, how do we avoid the betrayal? I don't care if it's self-betrayal, I don't care if it's other betrayal. I don't like betrayals. No, thank you. No, we've been betrayed enough. And so in it, then I pulled the Ace of Cups. So again, that emotion reversed as the clarification card in this. Possibly avoidance of betrayal of self, an introspective look at Ace of Cups. Fresh emotions, new things, interesting, interesting. But that Ace of Cups definitely adding on to the Three of Swords betrayal is one I feel like it's probably gonna be a very powerful betrayal. It's gonna hit home. Something's gonna not go well, right? It's gonna be a bit of very much in the soft squishy places, I feel like is what's coming up with that. But to what level that affects it, well, you know? But then we close out the year with the Page of Cups in December as the theme. So again, a new, fresh emotion, a playfulness that comes right after a major betrayal is very interesting because normally if I try to think of myself in my patterns when it comes to betrayals, I definitely do a long-ish shutdown. I am not the person necessarily to get up and jump back in. I might do a little bit of like a palate cleanser situation, and then I take time and I reflect. But I almost feel like maybe this whole year has been a lot of reflecting, so then it will conclude in an element of playfulness, and the card feels very hopeful in that position. Very much an easy bounce back possible situation. So, and then overall my theme for the year, it seems to be the Six of Wands in reversed. So that is, when I do always pull a theme of the year card, that mixes in also with the birth year card that I calculate. So AKA you take your birthday, you keep adding it all up. You take your birthday plus the year you're trying to calculate, add all those up until you get the numbers. I have a video on my channel showing you how to do this, I believe from last year. I'll put the link card or something or whatever in the description down below. So I kind of combine the two when I'm reviewing year ahead spreads, and specifically because I did this one in the new year, I think it's even more potent to understand because they're entirely coinciding, right? It is entirely 2022, not as a little bit of a carryover from my Samhain marking of stuff, right? In that in mind, my calculated with the math card is the Wheel of Fortune. Which is my favorite card in the tarot deck. Like, it is a card, the Gemini in me very much vibes with that constant change and motion, the change you cannot avoid, major stuff, the wheel spins. I've recently written a couple of poetry pieces that kind of link this up with the idea of like, it feels like the spools of the wheel have like divvied themselves into my very spine and they're pulling me along. And that could either be like a torturous thing, you know, if I'm holding on to something, like that's a torture rack situation. Or if I let go and just like let it take me, it's like, okay, cool, you can just relax and go. Life is gonna move. There is no you getting out of this, the fighting of it. Let it go, let it relax, let it be, you know? So that's a little bit hard, but also in a sense of like, okay, well, this major energy is a shift. It kind of makes me feel in a sense of this year possibly is going to have something in it for me that is a major marker, I guess, in a sense. Like, it's very much like a pin that's there and you don't get away from it. Last year, my card was the Hermit. I kind of fought against that a little bit, quite a few times throughout, and that was a little bit to my detriment overall. But I think that this will be very interesting because I am not fighting this card at all. It seems like, okay, well, let's see where this goes, but there's a quiet curiosity with some caution happening. So it's, I guess, a little bit of fighting, but a lot more trust this time in this year's card than last year's. And then in my spread with the, I'm trying to remember the Six of Wands reverse, what that means a lot of times. I'm pretty sure it's like a parade situation, right? In the card, like that's what we're dealing with. So it's like, so failure, lack of achievement, recognition, support, or confidence, endurance, losing, disadvantages, disgrace, disappointment, broken promises. The lack of achievement, recognition, it's interesting when I read a big list of things in the card, it's like what resonates? right? Like, because sometimes one aspect of a card and its meaning does not apply to it at all, but then something later down the line does. So like in this one, actually gets me is being a follower. The idea of pack mentality / mob mentality really pops up for me when it comes to this. Universe is an Americana card of mob or pack mentality, a follower being hunted. So for me, it makes very much sense of, oh yeah, there is a sense of me following along with the crowd of other people's interactions, interpretations, ideas. I am seeking outside help. I am listening to the universe at large. There are a lot of things where I am willing to be a follower in this year. I am seeking, curious, poking around type of deal. I think there are two sides of this, right? So there's the idea of like, sometimes being the follower is good because you aren't the leader in this situation. Someone else has more knowledge than you. Someone else has the experience, the expertise. It depends if you're being a follower is good or bad by who you're following. Are you critically thinking about who you're following? And so I think that could be an interesting concept to explore, that, you know, the idea of being a follower is not necessarily always a bad thing. As long as it doesn't go into that mob mentality thing. We're only doing it because the group says so. We aren't critically thinking about who we are following headlong into whatever. And so that, I think in a lot of ways, that does give me that reassurance I need a little bit, that yeah, I can just know that the Wheel of Fortune is dragging me along if I put those two meanings together. But the curious and cautious idea of following that energy in that card overall is, I think, a good line for me to tightrope across to hopefully get out of 2022 with some better energies and pushing forward, hopefully on a good life path for me overall. Anyway, let me know down below, is there a certain card that, and when I was talking about my reading, that you find something slightly different possibly? How have your year ahead readings been? I hope January is treating y'all nicely. Hopefully there will be more videos on the regular going on with this channel. We've got a couple pre-recorded and edited and scheduled to go, so let's hope this craziness and chaos spins in our favor, shall we? See you in the next one. Bye-bye.